The morning began like any other on the sunlit fourth-hour set. Warm mugs on the table, soft laughter rolling between segments. The familiar rhythm of comfort television doing what it does best. But something shifted when Jenna, 44 and usually all sparkle and ease, paused longer than usual before speaking. The audience felt it before she said a word. She wasn't reading a card. She wasn't tossing to a clip. She was choosing honesty over polish. With a breath that caught just slightly, she acknowledged the weight that had been hanging over her friend Savannah during a difficult season. Not headlines, not speculation, just the reality of watching someone strong carry more than they should alone. The room grew quiet in that rare way live television sometimes allows. It wasn't dramatic, it was intimate. And in that stillness, viewers realized they weren't about to witness a reveal meant to shock, but a moment meant to tell the truth about friendship under pressure. A friendship forged behind the cameras. Savannah and Jenna's bond didn't form on air. It grew in green rooms between makeup chairs during early call times when the city outside was still half asleep. They came from different worlds but recognized something familiar in each other. The expectation to perform, to represent, to never let cracks show. Savannah brought steadiness and precision. Jenna brought warmth and openness. Together, they balanced the room. Over the years, they celebrated milestones, carried each other through quiet disappointments, and learned when to speak and when to simply sit beside one another. Jenna often joked about Savannah being the calm in her storms, while Savannah appreciated Jenna's ability to bring humanity into moments that could otherwise feel scripted. What viewers saw as chemistry was actually trust built over time. When Jenna chose to speak that morning, it wasn't as a host chasing a moment, but as a friend who understood that silence can sometimes be heavier than honesty. Jenna at 44, standing fully in herself. By 44, Jenna had learned that reinvention doesn't always mean change. Sometimes it means clarity. She had lived long enough to understand how public perception can flatten people into caricatures. Daughter, mother, host, author, optimist. Each label held truth, but none captured the whole. Over time, she grew more comfortable acknowledging complexity, including her own insecurities and doubts. Her voice that morning carried that maturity. She wasn't confessing secrets or revisiting old wounds for attention. She was naming something many women recognize by midlife, the exhaustion of always being fine. Jenna spoke about the pressure to be light when things feel heavy, to keep laughing when concern settles in the chest. Her choice to speak wasn't about Savannah's story alone. It was about what happens when strength becomes expectation instead of choice. And that realization, delivered gently, resonated far beyond the studio. Savannah's quiet way of carrying weight. Savannah has always moved through the world with composure. It's part of why people trust her. But those closest to her know that calm doesn't mean absence of feeling. It means discipline. It means knowing how to hold emotion without letting it spill everywhere. Over years in high-pressure environments, Savannah learned that steadiness can be both shield and burden. Jenna alluded to this not as criticism, but as recognition. She spoke of watching her friends show up day after day, prepared, gracious, focused, even when life off camera demanded more than anyone realized. Savannah doesn't ask for attention when things are hard. She works, she organizes, she keeps going. Jenna's words gently reframed that habit, not as flaw but as survival strategy. And in doing so, she invited viewers to see Savannah not as untouchable but as human. Capable, yes, but also deserving of care. What the audience actually witnessed. Despite online chatter, what unfolded wasn't a bombshell. It was a permission slip. Viewers saw a woman speak with affection and concern about another woman she respects deeply. There were no accusations, no revelations meant to rewrite history. Instead, there was context. Jenna didn't tell Savannah's story for her. She acknowledged the limits of what she could share and the importance of allowing her friend space. That restraint mattered. The power of the moment came from what wasn't said as much as what was. It reminded audiences that public figures are still navigating private lives, often without room to process in real time. The applause that followed wasn't about drama, it was recognition. Recognition that vulnerability, when offered responsibly, doesn't weaken credibility. It strengthens connection. The segment ended quietly, but the impact lingered because it spoke to something universal: the courage it takes to care out loud without crossing lines. Why timing matters in honest moments. Some question why Jenna chose that moment, that morning, that platform. But honesty doesn't always arrive on schedule. Sometimes it emerges when silence starts to feel dishonest. Jenna sensed that viewers were filling gaps with assumptions, and she wanted to redirect attention toward compassion rather than speculation. Timing in this case wasn't strategy. It was instinct. She trusted the audience to handle nuance. She trusted Savannah enough to speak without speaking for her. And she trusted herself to stay grounded in empathy rather than impulse. In media spaces that often reward extremes, this was a quieter choice. But quiet doesn't mean weak. It means deliberate. Jenna understood that saying less carefully can sometimes protect more than saying everything. The moment worked because it wasn't polished for effect. It was shaped by care, restraint, and the understanding that real friendship shows itself not in grand gestures but in thoughtful ones. Midlife truths that don't need drama. At midlife, many people reach a point where truth matters more than image. Jenna's words reflected that shift. She wasn't chasing validation. She was modeling what it looks like to acknowledge concern without turning it into spectacle. That's a hard balance, especially on live television. Her willingness to hold that line spoke to growth. She recognized that not every truth needs to be loud to be meaningful. Some truths simply need to be named gently so others feel less alone. Savannah's strength, Jenna suggested, doesn't require constant reinforcement. It requires rest, support, permission to step out of the role of the strong one when needed. Those themes resonated widely because they mirrored what many viewers feel but rarely articulate. Watching two women navigate that reality publicly, with care for each other, felt less like entertainment and more like shared understanding. The conversation that continued after the cameras. What mattered most happened after the segment ended. The conversations viewers had with friends, the messages sent, the recognition in comment sections that said, "I know this feeling." Jenna didn't ignite controversy, she opened space. Savannah, for her part, didn't respond with statements or clarifications. She didn't need to. The moment wasn't about resolution, it was about acknowledgement. That restraint reinforced the trust between them. In a media environment that often escalates emotion for clicks, their approach stood out. It showed that you can speak honestly without inviting chaos, that you can care publicly without making someone else's experience your content. The segment didn't change their dynamic, it revealed it. And in doing so, it reminded viewers that real solidarity doesn't require perfect words. It requires timing, respect, and the willingness to stand beside someone without trying to fix them. What people will remember about that morning. Long after the headlines fade, what will linger is not what was said, but how it was said. With steadiness, with affection, without spectacle. Jenna didn't claim authority over Savannah's story. She acknowledged proximity and concern. Savannah didn't perform vulnerability to satisfy curiosity. She remained herself. Together, they modeled a version of strength that includes boundaries. The morning didn't expose secrets, it humanized endurance. It reminded viewers that even the most composed people need room to be carried sometimes, and that offering that space, publicly or privately, is an act of respect. At 44, Jenna didn't tell the truth in a sensational way. She honored it quietly. And that choice made all the difference.